Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to make tomato relish today, and you might not know what tomato relish is exactly, but don't worry, I will tell you exactly what it is and also what you can use it with. Um, and so, before I get into that, I just want to show you how nice and simple it is to make tomato relish. All you're going to need is some tomatoes and some onions, and then a few herbs and spices and things like that, which I will share with you in a couple minutes. So if you've got tomatoes at home, and I'm using a combination of big tomatoes and, as you can see, little baby tomatoes, and if you've got onions at home, then maybe you will be able to make tomato relish too. I really hope you can. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'll give you a list of things that you can use it for in a minute. Okay, so a couple of uses for tomato relish would be on hot dogs, on burgers. You could use it as a pasta sauce, and you could use it on sandwiches. You could have it with cold meats, although I don't know too much about that because I'm vegetarian. Or you could use it on a salad as sort of like a sauce. There's quite a few different ways that you can use tomato relish, so maybe you can think of a few of your own as well. One thing I really wanted to tell you about the tomatoes when you're choosing which ones you're going to use is to try get the juiciest and reddest ones that you can, and the reason for that is then they will have more natural sugar, so your tomato relish will have a lovely rich and very sort of sweetish taste, which is exactly what we're looking for with our tomato relish. The other ingredients you'll need, apart from tomatoes and onions, is some vinegar, some mustard or mustard powder, and you're going to need a little bit of curry powder and some salt. And if you want to, you can use a recipe, the recipe that calls for a little bit of sugar. If you don't want to put sugar into your tomato relish, then of course that's absolutely fine. I've got some organic unrefined brown sugar here, and so I have decided to use a little bit of this. But if you chose not to, I've done a little bit of reading and research, and that's also fine. It's up to you. Here are the lovely little baby tomatoes that I'm going to be using, and in total I've got 2 kgs of tomatoes, these ones and these ones together. That all comes to 2 kgs. And then I've got 1 kg of onions here. These are quite big onions. I really hope they don't make me cry when I chop them up, but I think they will. Over here in this hot soapy water, I've also got some jars that I'm cleaning. So I'm leaving them to soak a little bit because 1 or 2 of them had a bit of stickiness on from taking off the labels. And I've also got the lids in here to soak because they were a bit yucky after whatever was in there before. And so I'm going to give those a really, really good clean and make sure I do it with hot water. So please get an adult to support you with this part. And the reason why that's so important is that sterilizes the jar so that the tomato relish that I put in here will stay nice and delicious for a long time instead of going off. Because if you use a jar that isn't clean enough, then they can go off. Whatever you put inside, they can go off. I've washed these tomatoes really, really well, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sharp knife, so please make sure somebody's watching you for this part, and I'm going to cut like an X in the tomato. So I've cut a strip going that way and a strip going this way. It's kind of an X shape, and I've cut that into the tomato just lightly across the skin, and then I'm putting that tomato in a pot, and I'm cutting the next tomato like an X, and I'm going to keep going and do that with all the big tomatoes. I'm not going to do it to the small tomatoes. And I'll tell you why I'm doing this is I'm going to remove the skin from these big tomatoes, and the way that I do that is I'm boiling the kettle at the moment, and when it's really, really nice and hot, I'm going to pour boiling water over these tomatoes to cover them and leave them for just a few minutes. Then I'm going to take them out of the boiling water and wait for them to cool just a little bit so I don't burn my fingers, and then I'm going to peel back the skin off all of these tomatoes because Otherwise, we're going to end up with too much skin in the tomato relish, and we don't really want that. So here I go, making all my X cuts on the tops of the tomatoes, on this part of the tomato, putting it in a pot, and I'm going to keep going. I've still got quite a few more to do, and I'll show you the next step after this. My boiling water is on the tomatoes, as you can probably see. It's steaming quite a lot. So in a few minutes, I'll take these out and peel the skin off. These tomatoes have come out of the boiling water, and look how easy it is now to peel the skin off of them. Isn't that amazing? Completely peeled. So I'm going to do that with all of these tomatoes. I need to chop all these onions now. Wish me luck, guys. Wish me luck. I can do this. Guys, I'm fine, don't worry about me. I'm just crying from the onion. They're really making me cry. This is a lot of onion, but I'm nearly there. I'm nearly done. Look at all this onion. There is so much onion here. Guys, I cried quite a bit. And don't worry, this isn't blood on my hand. This is from cutting these tomatoes. So I'm going to cut all the tomatoes and mix them together with the onion, and 2 tablespoons of salt, and then let that rest for almost the whole day, because we're going to try and drain some of the water out of the tomatoes, and mixing it with onion and salt is going to do that for us. I've mixed all my tomato and onion together, and it's in this big pot over here. And I'm going to cover this with a tea towel and let it stand at least for 8 hours or overnight. And what we're trying to do is get as much of the liquid as we can released from the tomatoes, so that they're not as watery. One thing I forgot to let you know, in the tomato onion mixture, which I'm letting sit for quite a few hours, I put 2 tablespoons of salt, and that also helps to draw the liquid out of the tomatoes. Then I'll check it later and I'll show you what comes next. It's the next morning now, and I've put the tomato onion mixture in this colander so that all the extra water can drain out, and quite a lot of extra juices and water has been coming out of here. In the meantime, I've measured out about half a cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of mustard, 2 teaspoons of curry powder, and about half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, which is a very spicy kind of spice. And you must just be careful with how much you use. And then I need 2 cups of vinegar as well. And once the tomato onion mixture has drained properly over here, I'm going to put this all in a pot. I'm going to add these things and 2 cups of vinegar, and then we let that cook. And I'll tell you more in a minute. Take that and that. Hiya, hiya. That's not really part of the recipe, guys, but it feels pretty fun. Just squishing some of the juices out, I guess. Hiya. The stove is on. My tomato onion mixture is in a big pot. I'm adding my sugar, curry powder, cayenne pepper, and mustard. And I'm also adding my vinegar. I've got this big cup full of vinegar. I'm going to bring this to a boil, and then I'm going to let it cook for a whole hour until it's a beautiful dark red color. So I'll show you what comes next. Boiling, 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 boiling tomato and onion relish. The color is getting really nice and rich and dark. I'm going to leave this to boil a little bit more because there's quite a lot of liquid in here, as you can see, and the liquid needs to absorb a bit more. But it's looking really beautiful, and it smells so nice, guys. I was just thinking this would be a lovely pizza base sauce, like the red sauce on pizza. I think it would be really good for that. And by the way, I forgot to tell you, I've been boiling this red sauce with the lid on. So for about an hour, and in total it'll probably be about an hour and a half, and then it'll be ready. And when it's ready, I'm going to put my jars that I washed yesterday, I'm going to put them back into hot water. And as soon as they come out of that hot water, the sauce is going in. Then I'll cover the jars with a tea towel, and I'll only seal the lids on and I'll only put the lids on once the sauce has cooled completely. So that's the plan, man. My jars are back in some very hot water, and you'll notice there's no soap with them this time because I don't need to wash them. I need to sterilize them, which means I need to make them very, very hot before my tomato relish goes inside them. My jars are nice and hot. They've just been sterilized again. My tomato relish is ready. And so I'm going to spoon this very, very hot relish into the jars. And I can't wait to try this once it's all cooled down and I've decided what I'm going to put this into first. I think a pasta sauce is a really nice idea. I also think this would be amazing on burgers. And guys, just watch out for this part, because as this hot tomato relish goes into the glass jar, what do you think is happening to the heat or the temperature of the jar? Well, it's getting hotter and hotter. So it's getting quite hard for me to hold it. So I'm going to get a cloth. And as I'm spooning the relish in, I can hold around the jar with a cloth. So I'm going to keep going until I fill these 2 jars, and then I'll show you. My first 2 jars of tomato relish are full, and they look beautiful. The color is absolutely amazing in this tomato relish. I'm going to see if I can fill 1 more jar because it boiled down a lot. So I got 5 glass jars ready just in case, and I think I'll only end up needing 3 of them, which is absolutely fine. It's probably better to be a bit over prepared than under prepared. So I'm going to put these 2 aside really carefully because they're really hot. So there they go, and I'll fill 1 more, and then I guess I'm done with my tomato relish. I'm so happy about this. My tomato relish filled 1, 2, 3, 4 jars, and I'm really happy about that. So I think I'm going to give a couple of them away as gifts, and I'm going to keep 2 jars, I think, probably in the fridge just to make sure it lasts as long as possible. But what I need to do now, I'll show you, I need to cover these very hot jars with a cloth and let them cool down completely. Once they've cooled down, I'll put the lids on, because right now the lids are off. I'll wait for them to cool and then I put the lids on. And then that's how you make tomato relish. So I hope you get a chance to try it. Remember, you can leave out the sugar, you can add more chili, you can add no chili, you can experiment and see what works best for you. So enjoy the project.